Good evening, everyone. I'll call our meeting to order here in the Committee of the Whole room at 6 p.m. Pledge of allegiance, please. Mayor, we didn't know. It's not until one thing. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for
all. Alderperson Murphy, do you have an invocation? Okay. Roll call, please. Alderperson Murphy. Present. Ms. Diaz. Razak.
Present.
Simeon.
Present.
Finch. Present. McNeil.
Present.
Smith.
Present.
We do have remote electronic attendance.
I would like to make a motion to approve the remote electronic attendance of Alderperson Castro at the City Council meeting on July 15th, 2025, due to family emergency or other.
Second.
Motion by Finch, seconded by Timian. Roll call, please. Alderperson Murphy.
Aye.
Razak.
Aye.
Timian.
Aye.
Finch.
Aye.
McNeil.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
All right. Welcome, Alderperson Castro. I'll try to remember to look at the screen for any hands raised, etc. If you have a comment or question.
Got it.
Otherwise, just jump in if I've missed you, okay? Okay. Is there any public comment? Questions on the agenda? Move to our roundtable discussion 8.1 2026 to 2028 capital improvement plan presentation. Carol's name is first, but you're starting this off.
I'm gonna queue it up and turn it over to Carol and let so anyhow, as you know, we meet in June and July to talk about capital improvement planning and budgeting discussions, which is the lion's share of really what we do right outside of operations. So here we are, staring down the pipeline at some very significant investments. And it's no surprise. You know all of these items that we go through that time. You're going to be well aware of that. At the end of the day, you know, we are past the ARPA days. Started 4 years with our amount of money to spend and distribute, disperse, and we find ourselves in the budget now going forward in what I call pre-pandemic budgeting, traditional government, right? We're past the point of no return with ARPA. In fact, we're probably one of the first cities in the country to actually complete all of our ARPA projects based on the available funding and then have to report that. We're really not ready for anybody to report that. That's how far ahead we were. So let the record show. We did our job, we did it right, you know, and good planning on part of the council, good planning on part of the team, management team. We delivered great results. So we want to continue down that path, producing great results, prioritizing the funding that we have. I'm going to say it's limited funding, but all of that if you want. But it's very much laid out strategically based upon a strategic plan that exists today that we're about to replace going into fiscal year 26 and beyond. And I think you'll see that we're able to cover a lot of ground, deliver a lot of results, be responsive to the citizen survey that came in. They're carefully scrutinizing what we put in the strategic plan to address, the weak points that we discovered, and still play with the strong cards that we have in our hand, so that we can improve that score 4 years from now. All right, that's our goal, improving that score. That is our report card. Right? Wrong, right, or indifferent. We are, and we inherited part of it. Let's be honest. So we're doing our best to try and address everything that the citizens of Moline and businesses want us as the elected and appointed leadership. So with that, I'll turn it over to Carol to launch into the diagram in front of you, which we prepared to give a ballpark picture of what's going on inside one page.
I might just
add to what Bob said, that part of the reason that we started doing CIP projects in the summer is that if the council is comfortable with the project as presented, it gives the engineering an opportunity to bring the resolution forward to you so they can start on the design, the bidding process, all the engineering prior to the new year. So that's part of the reason we have to start. And as Bob mentioned, in front of you tonight is a little bar chart. And I just want to kind of give a snapshot of the overall projects that we're going to be reviewing tonight. And I'm also going to take you through financials. I'm probably going to take about 20 minutes max. I'm going to try to keep it short, try to keep it brief. But as shown by the bar chart that's at your places, we actually have a very aggressive CIP plan over the next 4 years, that's including the current year. And that is in spite of not having ARPA. And so I'm just going to touch on the highlights because David, Eric, and Charlie, they're going to be going through the actual projects tonight. I'm just going to briefly highlight those. So if you look at 2025, we've got a total highlighted in yellow at the top of that bar chart of $66.5 million that is before you tonight. Of that amount, because it looks like it's such a high number, and it is, almost 18 million is for South Slope, and another 11.5 million is the Arsenal deck. So that is part of the reason that amount is so large. As we move into 26, we've got $86 million that's going to be coming in front of you for the next budget year. And again, we've got over $30 million in South Slope funding. It's going to be spread the construction over a 4-year period, and we're going to go through all of that. But $30 million for South Slope in 2026. And down at the bottom in the green, we've got our $2 million for the quiet zone. And David's going to address that as well. Moving into 2027, potentially that is going to be a high year. It's kind of crazy to think, but $100 million in capital projects could be achieved in that year. And again, $30 million is South Slope. And as we get to the end of the presentation tonight, the very last things on the agenda, we're going to touch on the special CIP program, Mayor and Council. And in that program, finally coming forward is the Central Fire Station, $27 million. We've got some City Hall renovations that are also included for your consideration, as well as potential riverfront development if we do need secure grants of over $40 million. So we're going to touch on all those tonight. And then come down to a little more normal level in 2028. So as we look at those expenditures, which is bar chart, just briefly, I'm going to touch on it because we'll go through it tonight. But we are funding that through a variety of sources. We've got our gas, electric, utility tax, home rule sales tax, MFT. We have the state loan revolving funds, and that includes $120 million to South Slope, over $17.5 million for rent services. Then we've got some bonding for the Central Fire and potentially for City Hall for your consideration. Bill grants, like I said, $30 million in bill grants. Other federal grants, including the Arsenal, $25.5 million, all combined grants across the board. Then we've got all of our regular WPC water and stormwater projects that are entirely paid through fees, $25 million. We're using reserves of over $13 million in WPC where we upfronted design and engineering work for South Slope. And then lastly, we've got some franchise fees, as you know, almost $7 million. But as we go through this tonight, we're going to kind of touch on those, but those are the highlights. Any questions on that? Then as we go through I actually made copies for everybody because it's so hard to see on the screen. Yes, happy to do that. So if we turn to page 1, what I want to do is just to kind of highlight for you by fund type how we're going to pay for the projects. And the very first one is our capital improvement fund. And again, David's going to go through this in detail. I just want to tell you up front that the funds as presented we are fully able to pay for the projects that David is going to be presenting. And we're going to be looking at the last 4 years, so 25 through 28. And so with the CIP, you'll see our home rule sales tax, the very first line. The total between those 4 years, $17 million. And then in our gas and electric tax, it's almost $8.5 million to pay for these projects. As we go down to the total expenditure line for 2025, we anticipate $6.2 million in projects, working our way across 12,700,000 for a total of $34 million out of our regular CIP program. That is the most funding that we have ever had. And part of that, I'm going to touch on it later, but you'll see on the transfers in, you see that line there, you'll see $1 million and $2 million, $2 million. This is the first year in 2026, our new budget year, where we are pulling in $2 million of additional money from our special CIP projects to be allocated for enhancing the CIP. So it's happening. As we look at the fund balance, I just want you to know that the projects, as we are presenting them, it keeps our fund balance within our policy. So everything is right in order. Any questions on the CIP? So we'll jump into the next page, which is our motor fuel tax fund. And again, this fund funds all the projects that David is going to be going through. If we take a look at the 4-year period for MFT, we've got almost $8 million of MFT funds coming across the board on the revenue side. Then you'll see the federal grants. We've got $25.5 million. The biggest one is the Arsenal Bridge Deck, as well as 7th Avenue funds. Then on the expenditure side, you just take a look at the total. We've got that $19 million and $25 million for the Arsenal Bridge Deck coming in, but a total of $36.8 million over the 4 years. And again, looking at the fund balance, we anticipate ending the 3-year period for 2028 at $482,000, again, staying within our fund balance policy. Any questions on MFT? Oh, there's a lot going on. So our next fund then is moving into the water, and you've heard me say this repeatedly, we are following the plan regarding our fee increases, and I continue to say it's working. The fee increases that we've been looking at, we try to keep it at a marginal amount, keep it breaking even and pay for capital projects. We had hoped to keep that fee increase in the 2% range, and we can do that. Take a look at that top bar there for 26, 27, and 28. We are staying within that 2%, and that is being very careful management by our directors. It doesn't include all the payroll increases, and so it's being very well managed. That increase. I would like to state that the operating budgets are still being reviewed. Bob and I haven't had a chance to sit down and review that. But looking at the range of operating expenses, the increase, and the potential payroll increases, I know that we're going to be able to maintain that 2%. We're going to come back to you in August for Roundtable for our fee increase review. But I just want to give you a heads up right now. We're absolutely right on target.
Sure. Since you mentioned the fee increase review, we have only approved fees through 2025, except in the WPC we had to do the loans we did a little bit ahead. Am I remembering that right?
We always do the fee review. I mean, we always adopt it for the 1 year, but we always give the 3-year the projections based on the 3-year budget. But yes, we'll see that in a minute for the WPC. We are going to have to raise the fees.
But I thought we had to lock that in because of the loans, or maybe we were going to have to do it more than 1 year.
We had to.
Which I don't know if I checked that one.
We had to submit it for the bank loan application.
Yeah. Just making sure.
Yeah, you're right on. You're right on. skipping down to, you'll see a surge charge fee, you see that little in the financials, that little highlight I made. We are anticipating now, we had talked a year ago that we might have to implement surcharge fees for the lead service lines. As we have revamped the cash flow and everything, and Charlie and his staff, they have been able to obtain additional 0% loans. And so we are not looking at having to do the surcharge fee potentially out to 2020. So that's very good news. Now, things can change, but right now, our best projections are very, very good news. And that is part of being able to keep it at that 2% level too, as far as fee increases. Skipping down into that bright yellow box with the red gold around it, the top line, these are the projects that David, as well as Charlie, are going to be reviewing tonight. For the 4-year period, there's over $21.5 million of capital projects that we're going to be looking at out of the water fund. Largely, about these lead replacement. We have in there too, just to highlight, we've got the Sorensen grant that has a city match. It appears we're going to be able to have an Illinois, and the low interest loans here of $8 million, and half of that will be for 0%. So it's wonderful. And so the total amount for the lead service state revolving fund loans is about $17 million. So we are really being aggressive going after those replacement lines. And then lastly, just to show all these projects going in, we are still staying within our fund balance policy. It's the green highlight at 27.82% projected in 2028. So those fee increases are working and we're keeping right in our goal.
It's wonderful that we can access these 0% loans. Are they in jeopardy at all? Have we heard at the state level based on what the state is getting?
As of right now, they're not in jeopardy, but everything at certain levels, that's a little bit of that time.
Okay. No, you're right. We'll continue to monitor that. Any questions on water? So we can move into the next page then. This is where things have changed a little bit since we saw last. You'll see as part of your book, I've actually included on WPC now, instead of just our 3-year plan, we've actually got it here out to 2060. The loan is out for 40 years. This is the actual cash flow that we presented to the bank for their consideration. And again, as the bank knows and as you all know, there is no way to accurately project things out 30 years. But as best as we can, we have been, I'll tell you where to do this. The good news is that as we are looking at our fee increases that started in 24, 25, we go back to page 4, and you'll see 9% and 9%. We had originally hoped we were going to be able to drop down into the 4% range, but in order to make this cash flow, we have to go 6% for the next 3 years coming up. And that is what we locked in with that unique loan app. However, if you look out to 2020 to 2060, those increases gradually go down, and it appears we're able to stay within that 2% range, which is where water is right now. For annual operating payroll, it'll cover it. So we're going to work our way down into the 2% range.
Can I add something? I think this is the appropriate spot to discuss. I know we've talked about Sunsville quite a bit off and on as we've maneuvered through the obtaining the loan, et cetera. If you haven't seen Sunsville yet or haven't revisited it, I did go, a couple weeks ago, with Mr. Atkins and everything, and I think you really got to see, I know we've been gotten reports, but how important this work is, right? We don't take the 40-year loan lightly or the rates lightly at all, but that thing, you
needs so much work that I can't imagine leaving future generations with a self wastewater treatment plant completely goes to pump, and then what the city costs of living are. Thank you for putting this whole plan together. Yes, Mr. Jim?
The compounding rate increases over the years. I don't want to talk about 2060, let's talk about 2030. What's a realistic amount that is on the bill? Because it feels like it's gonna be just like an exponential water bill over the next 40 years, which just makes me wonder, if obviously, over the next decade, if we need to be more creative about finding other ways to help pay down the balance.
If you get to the fees, it's actually on page 15, but if you take a look, and we're only looking at utilities on that page for WTC water and storm, because that's what we're talking about tonight. But see, 6%, and it's gonna go down to 2%. But that 6% on a monthly basis, and I'm not taking up my list, but it's about $2.66. And 6% on 6% is about another 283 and 296. So that's what it is on a monthly basis. So 2% eventually will be much less.
I think that certainly will have impact, but it's an enterprise fund. And so the way that's set up is meant to be completely self-sustaining. And so unless we were action to supplement it or cut that off, then that's gonna have to come up private costs. And not to mention that, that's what we raised rates a couple years back, there was only places I couldn't build. So, the big reason those rates was like, they kicked out a can for a long time.
And just so you know as well, this is the plan that we presented to the bank to get the loan. But as time goes on, over that years up to 60, we will always look at these fees on an annual basis. If something changed, need to be higher or lower. I'm very hopeful that these are the highest that they would be, that there's potential to be lower.
And if we were so lucky to be in a position to draw down reserves to put money toward paying something down, that is an option we could look at without upsetting that part of your entire beautiful budget here.
No, absolutely. I'm all for that. I'm thankful for low interest loans still,
Right, that one, trying not to saddle
Yes.
future councils with this debt as soon as we can.
And of course, if we increase population by 5%, that has a huge
That
impact.
was a strategic plan.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, that's getting good. And that's also.
So a couple of highlights on this. The revised cash flow, all in for the construction of South Slope, including the design, all of the engineering, as well as the construction, is bright yellow in the middle of the page, $132.8 million all in. And that includes a 10% contingency and construction period interest on the EPA, because we don't have to start making payments right away. If we have the money, we will, but we don't have to, so there's potential that there'll be a little bit of interest, but all in, as we look at that, $120 million again is that low interest loan. And the first payment right now, we'll just follow the yellow line across. That's where I was saying that 30 million, 30 million, 30 million, and 26, 27, 28, you see that? In the bright yellow. Then if you turn the page, in 29, that will be the last drawdown for the construction period. That is also the first year, if you look down in the pink in 29, the pink highlight, that will be our first potential payment, required payment on that. Again, if we can pay early, we will. But right now, that's how we have set it up. Might make mention too, if you look out to years 2037, we currently have an existing EPA loan, and that last payment of $2,250,000 is dropping off in 2037. So that is giving us some relief, moving forward on some of those fees. That's why we're able to drop off there. There's a lot going on with this. So we talked about the fees. The key thing is that the balances with all the construction and it's not just South Slope because we're going to be going over tonight. We still have vehicle purchases and all of our normal CIP in addition to South Slope. So that's part of what the fees are also being for. And there's millions of dollars annually this fund will continue to pay for. But the fund balance, the ending fund balance is within our policy. It fluctuates a little bit because of the timing of the project, but it's all working. Any questions on WPC? It's been huge team, huge team, everybody everywhere, huge.
According to the ITA, is captured by the state. It should belong. Statewide.
Why is that? Like, we're not one of the biggest cities.
It's just a huge market that serves a very large area. And it has capacity serves way beyond just what it serves today. Additional users is turning out the residential, commercial, industrial, and road. Other municipal users can't predict the future, plan for it. There are, situations, for example, there's a long money in that community managing their systems today, have been for years. No, it's possible that they would look instead of their separate system of the Cold Valley or Fergus Moline, then that changes the map as well. So, this is, I think, the worst case, is what I would call it. The best case is we continue to grow and continue to grow in order to make sure that this facility gets maximum used as opposed to businesses. Businesses today entirely need to be replaced. Move back to the whole time. 50s, 60s, and 70s in that state. Right. Fresh life.
So I've got two more pages of financials, and then I'll turn it over to David. If you turn to page 14, it's the stormwater fund. And again, this is following the plan. If you look back at 2024, I know you will all recall that we increased rates 30%. And we are now down into that 2% range, and it's maintaining. And the best news of all, if you look in the highlighted yellow and the red border around it, we are now able to have over $1 million annually CIP projects. And for those of you that might have been around in 20 and 21, the 1 year when I was here, it was zero money. It only paid for the operating costs of the project. So the council making the decision to raise the fees and the types of projects that we are now able to get done. And then looking down, just very briefly, again, at 2%, we are staying within our fund balance policy. Look at the green highlight for 2028, 26.91. We're right on target as well. Again, we have not incorporated all the operating, but we believe these rates are going to hold. And Bob and I are going to sit down and review again before we come back to you. So now we're down to page 15 on those fees. And right now, we're only looking at WPC water and storm. It's highlighted yellow with the red oval. And as we just talked about, as presented with the fee increases for WPC at 6% each of those 3 years coming up, and water at 2% and stormwater at 2%. for that first year in 2026, even though we are increasing our WPC higher than what we had anticipated back before, those three fees are lower than the current. So currently in 2025, the increase was $6.81, and now the increase will be $3.07. When we come back to you with the operating budget and we've had time to go through everything, we will be looking at potentially property taxes, which is part of this formula, then they're all pulled down. Franchise fees, right now, we were scheduled to be looking at that, raising that January 1 of 26. That helps drive our 10-year special CIP plan, as well as the sanitation. Any questions on that? And before we proceed, I completely forgot, I wanted to introduce Andrea Bradley. She is our recently promoted manager. If I can say, she is the gold star in our department.
Welcome to the table.
She's been doing everything. She's been doing everything CIP, reconciling with all the departments. Yeah, she's really taken a deep dive. And then with that, I'll hand it over to David.
Bill.
Good evening. I only have 44 slides. I promise I will go through this, just lots of pictures. Simple mind. The first thing is our budget is composed of capital and maintenance projects. Maintenance categories are the short life things, pavement markings, joint sealing, the things that extend the life of pavement, inlet replacements for Charlie and Laura's group, Apache program, and the capital programs are larger and more expensive projects, reconstructions, resurfacings, special projects like the Arsenal Bridge Deck, quiet zones, CDBG funds for targeted neighborhoods, and then my favorite category, transfer to parks, $400,000. It gets me every time. How do we select projects? We look at the pavement condition. We use the pavement condition index. We look at the condition of Charlie's and Laura's underground infrastructure, age and modernization needs of infrastructure, traffic signals. We had traffic signals that were out there that were 40 years old. We look at the functional class of the street. That's the category. I suppose I should change the slide there. Functional class of the streets, and considering arterials, collectors, residential streets, considers traffic volumes. Of course, an arterial street will carry more traffic volume than the others. And then the miscellaneous items of federal and state funding, which we can leverage for eligible projects, which are generally constrained to arterial and collector streets. For example, 19th Avenue resurfacing this federal motor fuel tax project, 7th Avenue reconstruction, 16th Street Viaduct, 34th Street. We look at that paving condition index. We reviewed this before as a process developed in the 70s. We look at 8 types of pavement failures. Those listed there. I won't go through each one unless you have a specific question. And then the traffic volumes, this data is provided by Illinois DOT. They will do coverage counts on city streets that are useful for us for our pavement design and things. We maintain 235 miles of streets. And this is a slide that just shows the percentage breakdown. 21% of our streets are arterials and collectors, 54% of them residential, combined 75%, and alleys comprise 16%, so total about 91%. And the remainder are park service roads and those types of things. What are our streets conditions? We did the study in 21. We had a program again for next year. The average PCI for Moline, as the model shows today, is 59, a high fare. 55% of our system is in good condition, good to excellent condition. The payment condition index has dropped slightly from when we initially did that because as we're maintaining the streets, the model is aging the other streets. It doesn't truly reflect everything that we have done to the streets in that time frame. For example, it doesn't reflect pavement patching that Darrell Preston may be undertaking in some of those smaller projects. Our heavily traveled streets, the arterials are in very good shape. Our collectors in good shape. Rather, it's the residential streets and alleys that are in fair shape and which are generally bringing the overall number down. This is a slide of pavement condition, functional classification type by pavement condition. We've been focusing on the arterial and collector streets, and so far, for example, 88% of our arterials are in good to excellent condition, and our residentials are 56% in good to excellent condition. Alleys with the largest percentage in the marginal is 39%. So our collectors and arterials are in fairly good shape, and we need to do more with the other streets. The end result is a citywide pavement condition map, and we do update this as we complete our major projects. For example, I don't know if this has a laser pointer to even show on the screen or not, but 19th Avenue from Rock Island to 7th Street, that was in poor condition. We resurfaced that. It now shows it as a street in excellent condition. And as we complete 19th Avenue from 7th Street to 16th Street, we'll change that to excellent good condition and update the model. But overall, we need to rerun the pavement condition index with the van with the telemetry that records all the cracks within the pavement and calculates the condition index, and that we'll do next year. And Bob wanted me just to kind of break this out by functional type. This is the condition of our arterial streets. So this is what the feds in the state consider our arterials in Moline. For the most part, they're green and good shape, except for the piece that we're working on this year for 19th Avenue. We also have programmed in future years 16th Street, which is at the terminal end there on the east end of 19th Avenue. So it shows that our arterials are in good shape, so we'll be able to focus more on other streets as we proceed. This is our collector streets. A number of these streets are also programmed in upcoming years. We've got this 15th Street, 30th Avenue by WQAD is under construction as we speak. We have programmed 16th Avenue in coming years. There also 7th Avenue is on the list, 34th Street, which is difficult to see, but the piece from the railroad to 4th Avenue is in poor condition. That'll be reconstructed, start reconstruction this year. And then our residential streets, which 61% of the total, them and seal coat streets. So we have a lot of work to do to get those up to speed. And then the allocation map. We have fewer alleys, yet they still require maintenance, but they're also our lowest travel streets. Sidewalks. Last year, we were tasked with creating a sidewalk condition, much like the pavement condition index. So what we did was, had a staff team just drive the city streets and review the condition of sidewalks, via a windshield survey, and categorize those into 1 to 4 categories, which basically is 4 to 1, 4 being sidewalk in best condition, essentially new, little or no distress, all the way down to rating 1 where severe deterioration clearly has failed and clearly needs to be replaced. And so these are some examples I threw up there of just the category 1. You can see that the pavement slabs are completely broken grass growing through them and the cracks, and then two that are not as bad, but still in difficult condition. The end result was this pavement condition, sidewalk condition map, which identified those categories by their mileage. So we have 10.3 miles of very poor condition streets, 31.6 miles of number 2. Most of our sidewalks were at the level of 3, and 80 miles in very good to excellent shape. This slide just shows the mileage by condition. 196 miles in categories 4 and 3, and 41.8 miles in 1 and 2 condition. We like to get rid of the 1s and 2s as best we can. This slide shows the mileage of sidewalk by condition by district. District 2 wins the gold star for having the most sidewalk. District 4, the second, and District 3, the third. And this shows the percentage of condition of the sidewalk within that district. If you want to take a closer look at that.
When you're saying district, are you talking about?
Wards.
I come from Wisconsin.
We can't help it.
And this slide just shows the funding that we have programmed over the next several years. 50,000 in ADA improvements, 530,000 for trip hazards and other sidewalk projects, and then shows it over the coming years. This slide doesn't show any of the CDBG funds that are being considered, and that was a simple oversight on my part. It was too late to ruffle Carol's process with changing the slides.
We'll get it later.
Yeah.
Sorry, Google.
So this is essentially the project focus for 2026. And I don't know why that title slide just doesn't seem to show up. But anyways, this was kind of the area where we're going to focus on in 26, and then it'll actually probably be the larger area, hopefully with the CDBG funds. It costs about $12 a square foot for sidewalk, and it's costly, but it doesn't reflect always the true cost of a sidewalk. Oftentimes, because of the terrain in Moline, we have to have short retaining walls, we have to do the ADA ramps, which are costly, and then if the driveways are steep, we have to chase back up the property owner's driveway to actually match them with the sidewalk that meets the ADA requirements. Yes, sir.
You said that 10 months in a very poor condition. The estimated budget for 2026 out of 10 months, how many months we can replace?
Carol said that we would have about $1 million
Okay.
for sidewalk, right?
Hey, Carol,
Including
you want to have dinner with me?
Including the CDBG fund.
And that would increasing the funding, recommending increasing the CDBG fund.
And at $12 a foot, square foot, that's about 3 miles of sidewalk. Again, not considering all the additional costs with short retaining walls, driveway approaches, curb ramps.
And
Streets. These are 2026 projects. The resurfacing, we want to start a program where we resurface alleys as opposed to full reconstruction. So we have that budgeted for $150,000 to try that. Yeah, we have 16th Avenue from Rock Island to corporate limits. That was 980 before on Collector Street. So we have 15th Street from 19th Avenue to 23rd Avenue. These are all in full condition streets and they're minor collectors. Then we have 4th Street alongside the west side of, I think it's Stevens Park, the local streets. We have, 11th Avenue C, that's a project that we've had on the list that we need to do to tackle some underground utilities. It's a local street as well. We have some intersection reconstruction projects, 12th Street, 12th Avenue. It's an intersection where the pavement's in poor condition. Minor arterial, we have 10th Street and 11th Avenue intersection reconstruction. We have the streets in Old Oakwood. It's the neighborhood streets that the pavement has failed. 19th Avenue Court. 10th Avenue. And I need to print a bigger slide. How bad my eyes are. And we have the sidewalk program, which we touched on before. The Morgan Park, combined phases 1 and 2. We're hoping to proceed next year with. We get all the appraisals and right of way, securing the right of way squared away this year. We have the $300,000 of CDBG funds program. We have the updated pavement management survey for $70,000. There's a new project that we haven't had before, some aesthetic treatments working with Illinois DOT at the I-74 and John Deere Road Bridge. I just want to have something a little more attractive than your typical interstate highway bridge crossing that you would see out in the county. Something that would kind of but identify that you're in the city of Moline, and I have some photos of that later in the deck. We have Charlie's lead service line replacement and a grant from Sorensen in here. We also have some highway safety improvement funding, $2 million for the quiet zones. The FRA has approved the quiet zone, and the railroad is in design, and they're making progress on that, so that should be something we can knock off the list next year. We have some lighting along 12th Street downtown, and then some maintenance at the parking lot. So here's the slides that show these locations: Morgan Park, 15th Street, Old Oakwood, 27th Street path in there with Laura's working on the DOT, 36th Street down there off of Old Town Road. Up there at the high school entrance, the high school's planning on making some improvements there, and we have some funding in there to participate with the traffic signal. This is what the aesthetic treatment for I-74 in John Deere. I-74 in John Deere Road. Of course, it won't say City Road. Sure.
So I was on the 2026 projects map.
Yes.
Added the cities in 36th Street, but I didn't see that in the project list. I was just wondering if that's.
And we were the cities in 36th Street?
Yeah.
Yeah, I asked Laura about that. We had about $85,000 in that. This program that I missed a nice list of projects. So we have $85,000. Sorry.
A similar question about the, this is River Rock Path. That's a joke because it says miss. Okay. That wasn't on this list either. I'm kind of curious to know, unless I missed it somewhere.
No, I think you might be right. It's here's that man.
It's not, the lead was November. So we constructed in 26.
26. I know I sent you an email. Is there a plan to do anything on the 19th Street?
No, I was putting together the response to that.
So that'll be from pretty much after the cities, 36.
The reason we don't see it is because it was already budgeted, being correct, it's being left. Yes, it was budgeted, it's being carried over.
Continue, please.
Aesthetic package. And here's some of the downtown projects. We got the Arc and Ramp label, the label really show very well. And the 5 flag zone crossings in the downtown. Also the 2 intersection locations, and then we also have, I just put a dot on it, 19th and 12th Avenue. In the future, if we convert the last remaining segment to a 3-lane cross section, we would need to do some minor pavement work there, so I just put that.
Mr. Dryer, do you still have the roundabout at 16th Street?
Yeah, it's sitting in Springfield, if I recall correctly, right now, and being processed by the state still. But that's,
It's for state funding, not federal.
yeah, it's just the beginning stages of that.
Okay.
And this is our 10th Avenue project, pavement condition here in very poor shape. We're still trying to get to after we sustained some significant damage with the very cold winter several years ago. 2027 projects. And we have the alley resurfacing projects there. We have 15th Street from 23rd to 29th Avenue. Minor collector, 16th Street, just north of Avenue of the Cities to 19th. That's minor arterial. I noted on that one earlier as one of the remaining arterials that's in poor condition. We have 41st Street, River Drive to 4th Avenue. That's past Moline Forge, which is in poor condition. 10th Avenue Place is another project in Moline that I think Moline was trying to work on. Then we have the sidewalk projects and Avenue of the City and 53rd Street intersection project is the modernization and configuration of the traffic lanes. We have the service line replacement for $3 million. CDBG funded projects, the River Drive streetscape project, which we secured, I think, was $3 million in ITEP funds and $700,000 in local bridge maintenance, design and construction to maintain the city's bridges. Another aesthetic package with IDOT when they redo the redeck the bridge at Avenue of the Cities over I-74. And that one will include light facilities on the outside lanes, so it'll be a little more expensive than the previous project because we wanted to have a decent looking railing up there in addition to the inset City of Moline.
And on those, bridge things, in both cases, they're working on the bridge, or have actually.
Yes, exactly. It just occurred to us that we should do something that's a little more attractive.
Does that include the bridge not only in the Avenue of the Cities crossover, I-74, but the one that's like 27? That one's
just
the one way?
It'll just be the one bridge, the Avenue of the Cities.
And that's our responsibility, though, the one.
No, that's the city's bridge, but I think I recall that they didn't see a need to do anything with it this time.
Well, I'm not talking aesthetics, but
Oh.
it also.
It's their bridge.
Okay.
Are we talking about the Avenue of the City or the 27th Street?
No, I was just asking about the 27th.
She wanted to know 27th Street or ours.
Okay, well, we mentioned the Avenue one though. Yeah, that's I'll ask about that.
So here are the 2027 projects we're always pleased with. The Avenue of the Cities, bridge redecking with the state, 16th Street resurfacing there on Moline north to 19th, and 15th Street there. What happened to that label? This is crazy because it shows up on line printout, but not on the screen. Anyways. Yeah, tech challenge. And then here's the other project in Moline that's in very poor condition. The Moline Forge project up there at 41st Street. Also a good project, we've got a number of complaints on that one, intersection of Avenue and Cities and Third Street. Again, more funding for the parking ramps, because they're always, have some, backlog maintenance that we like to catch up on. And the River Drive streetscape from 19th Street to 12th. 2028 project. In the alley resurfacing program, we have 18th Avenue west of 7th Street, kind of in the Old Town area. And I won't notice here too that all these are local streets as reconstruction and much needed work has been completed on the arterial reflectors at this point. 20th Avenue from 16th to 18th Street B, 30th Street, 24th Avenue, 25th Avenue A, reconstruction projects of 17th Street, also in very poor shape. 11th and 13th Avenue, we'd like to program in the future to go all the way to 8th Avenue, 39th Street, 11th to 12th Avenue, 25th Avenue, 15th to 16th Street. These are the two streets that are right off of 16th Street, in the Ozarks District, and the ADA sidewalk compliance program, sidewalk projects. Again, Charlie's lead service line replacement, 19th Avenue and 16th Street intersection reconstruction. That, to kind of follow up from the pavement project south of there, so we'll want to reconstruct the intersection then. And then CDBG funded projects, and again, more parking ramp maintenance there with membrane, roofing, and painting and things. So here graphically are the projects. We have the 30th Street, east of 74, 20th Avenue, near Browning Park, near 19th Avenue, 16th Street intersection. There's two short streets off of 16th Street there, 25th and 26th Avenue, 17th Street, starting south of 12th and going north for a while. 11th to 15th Avenue, very poor condition. 18th Avenue down there off of 7th Street in the Old Town area. 48th Street is a street that we'd like to resurface, but it's a collector street, so I wanted to see if we can secure some STVG funds for that. And also last piece of that Moline 3 Street project there, 30th Street or 38th, where we get new glasses. 11th Avenue, 12th Avenue. And so the end result is what do all those streets, if we throw on the map between poor pavement condition, this is kind of how we knock off some of those red streets there. And this kind of gives you an idea of the progress we're making. And then this is with 26, 27, 28 projects overlaid with four and very poor streets. And this is all I have tonight.
Thank you very much. Utilities, any questions? Yes, Mr. Rosa.
This is not related to what we have planned, but related to the sidewalk.
Okay.
Because the area that ADW 28th Avenue, all in that area, the sidewalk, condition of sidewalk are really bad. Part of it, I would say that residents are responsible. Because, when I see the sidewalk in front of my house, if there is any grass or weed, I take it out and clean it. If you look at it in those areas, they never did it. So over the time, grass grows and destroys the roadside area. I do not know how to address that. How can we aware the resident that, look, this is a place that you want, but over the years, for not taking care by yourself, it was. I do not know how to address.
How do we inspire folks to take care of the sidewalk in front of their houses is what he's saying.
I would approach it cautiously.
That I understand, but you know.
I understand because I walk the city, more than most, right? And I know exactly what you were, it was, the joints between sidewalks are just totally overgrown. Nobody bothers to put a chemical on it, kill it, or weed whack it, and chemical it. People just let it go. It comes back year after year after year, and you're right, it starts to disrupt the strength of that sidewalk, and it starts to fall.
I think there's a couple different ways
Policy.
to go. Our communications, right? When you have a board meeting, you can bring this up, right? This is a way we can work together, et cetera. Or communications, does everybody know that their sidewalk is, it's our responsibility, but it's a shared responsibility as well. Like those kinds of things, people aren't always thinking about, so there's probably a level of communication that can happen, but.
It's no different than snow removal. We require people to remove snow from their side. We couldn't require people to remove snow.
Well, some of those sidewalks, about the only thing holding them together, are they?
Oh, I can show you a dozen panels.
No, I
Like
know you're exactly right. And at the same time, there's the buildup of the terrace through eons, years, and then the water doesn't drain back to the street.
That's correct.
And that's, it causes
A lot of
issues.
factors that are creating it. But most of the sidewalks that are in those bad shape are the ones that are made with the old river, right? And they've been around, those are the original sidewalks. They've been around for 100 years. 100
Well,
years.
so the city plan to replace or repair is really where it starts. Because they could clean it out, but it's still tracks for the original sidewalk.
If you were me, I would say that's the last house throwing stones.
Yeah, beware.
I think the circular, no one's gonna take pride in their neighborhood to fix it unless we take pride in the neighborhood and start fixing it.
Right.
And the more walkable it is, the more people walk, which means the more people mow their lawns and take care. There's a circular feedback loop here, and it starts with us doing our part. And unfortunately, it's just gotten to the point where there is no one cares, and that's okay. So we know how to fix it. Just that's it.
Okay, we'll move on with utilities CIP.
Just got out here, I'll just move. On slide.
That's what you're going the wrong way. You're going the wrong way.
Sorry, you did those slides, sure.
There you go.
There we go. Okay, so thank you, for the utilities CIP, we had, 3 divisions.
It's okay, keep going.
The drinking water, the wastewater, and the stormwater. We'll start with the drinking water. As you all know, the drinking water plant is a little bit older, 1933. So a large portion of budget and quite a amount of effort needs to go into not just updating it with new technology that comes along, with new regulations that come along, but also just maintaining. So starting what we're doing this year for 2025 is we're amending the budget to add a couple $100,000 more for the Neptune Gateway collectors. You remember the Neptune Gateway collectors are these instruments that we can put up on monopoles. Right now we have one on each water tower. And what it will do is it collects the water meter reading data so that our meter personnel do not have to drive as much and hunt down every single one and read it down. We're collecting a little over 5,000 out of our 17,000 right now. If you have any worry about the meter personnel losing their job, they are more than backlogged. And what it actually does is kind of double bonus us because now we save their time by not having to go around each individual little residential street and collect a meter reading. But it opens up time for them to kind of hit the heavy hitters. So we try to replace one large commercial meter a month. So when one of those fails, you're not talking about a $40 water bill. You're talking about hundreds, if not 1,000, and then those companies get excited and say, hey, we missed one. You double up this month and give us a few thousand. So it actually get more. We collect the small ones and it allows us to stay on top of the larger ones. You'll see going forward, we have those Neptune gateway collectors, and we've already put 2 up this year. We have money to put a couple more up. In 26, 27, we also add the gateway collectors, just so in your mind, know there's a little bit of wiggle room. Because as we put each gateway collector up, we can see how much data is collecting and where to put the next one. So we think that's how many. Maybe we'll need 1 or 2 less. Maybe we'll need 1 or 2 more. The other wiggle room we have is if you kind of, you guys know your boards better than anybody else. We put up the gateway collectors, the biggies, right? 3 water towers, city owned, no problem. Now it looks like we're going to have to be a little more creative, maybe monopoles on top of schools or something. They need about 50 feet up in here. So if you can think of something in your ward, like, hey, that would actually hold this collector, let utilities know and we'll check it out and see if it works. Maybe we don't have to.
How wide?
It doesn't take up a terrible amount of room, about the same size as what you see. You notice the antennas on top of the water towers? Not that large. Not super big.
Cell tower, pretty much. Yeah. Or even smaller.
Yeah, even a little smaller, but so if anyone's looking for a good monopole in their regular, I got the opportunity for you. Our cybersecurity project is wrapping up this year. All our cybersecurity, basically cybersecurity, but it's also the PLC, it's also the SCADA update that we're updated at the water plant. So we're basically re-upping that water plant control program to also match our wastewater control, and it needed re-amped after about 20 years. It'll give us more control. What that also does is, though it's not a big deal to keep in the back of your mind, it does change in the future our workforce needs, where our water plant operators will need to be a little bit more technical. So the job kind of takes the job from old school. Here's a big heavy wrench, being on it, get it to work, to maybe a little bit more technical, that type of job. And then the big one we're doing at the water plant that we're waiting for many months now is we have a master plan that's been ongoing for a couple years. We're waiting for the results. Like I said, our water plant is pretty old. And so we brought in an outside engineer to look at it with a fresh set of eyes and use their professional opinion on what to fix first and where to spend the money first and how to do the project. Because it's very easy when you're working in the water plant. You walk by the same crack every day in the wall and you're like, oh my gosh, that needs to be fixed right away. And maybe it doesn't matter at all. And you really need to be focusing on another part that's about to fall apart and full house of cards. So you'll see that in 25, 26, 27, 28. Really, we're hoping to get a plan for the next 15 to 20 years. And so I was told in the past that the council preferred to take it chunk by chunk. We could piece it together. If you really wanted to and take on even more debt, I haven't talked to it to enough debt. You could rip off the Band-Aid all at once. I think Carol is squirming in her chair as I say that. So right now we have it. We'll do a couple projects every year as needed to keep the water at a high quality. What you'll see in 2027, we have the PFAS pack installation. PFAS are the forever chemicals. PAC stands for powdered activated carbon. Right now, that's one of the cheaper, efficient options we're hoping for to remove PFAS out of our water. Right now, we're conducting a study, so we just don't design and throw it out in open works. We're actually having bench scale testing done so that we can hone in how much PAC do we have to add, how long does the contact time have to be for us to write off PFAS, and how much are we going to do. So we hope to have that study wrapped up next year, and then we will design what we think will be a PAC delivery system at the water plant to pull out these PFAS. You'll see that it's offset with low and other revenue. It's actually other revenue. So if you may remember, the city is involved with a few lawsuits concerning DuPont, 3M, a couple small ones. We think after the lawyers and everybody is that they will get around $2 billion, probably over the next 12 to 15 years. We're actually ready to big work to get our first payment of $300,000 this year from 3M. So Bob has promised me, he's promised me that he's going to make a call.
Well, it's really cool.
Well, it gets me worried because you guys were just talking about science. They're important. So technically, that PFAS money can go to the city and spent on anything. So we've always planned on it going back to treating the water, right?
Yes, that's true.
So I had to tell you that, but really, hands off.
I'll go on the record and say that is true.
When you were talking about designing our own PAC filter
Non-filter
What-
media content.
removal, okay, is this not like a widespread contraption than anyone else's? Like, why are we designing one? Why isn't there one commercially available?
I'm sorry, when I said designing one, what we're using is we're engaging with CDM Smith, and they have kind of sets with silos. It's basically just a delivery system. That'll be very close to our flanker.
Okay.
So it'll be unique to our water plant, but it's not like we're reinventing.
We're not fabricating it. Yeah, okay.
And actually, we're going for PAC precisely because of that reason. We have PFAS that we have to remove, even though it's been kicked down a year. The regulation date has been kicked down 2 years, and we're just under. Anything over 4 is bad, and we're running at about a 3.8. We've had over 4 for 1 quarter testing the last year. So we're running around 3.7 to 3.8. We're very close. The PAC is probably not a long-term solution because that carbon absorbs the PFAS, but then we send it down to the wastewater plant. What do? They pull it out in the sludge. What does the sludge? Goes to the landfill. What leaks out of the landfill? Right back into the river, right? So right now we're pulling out cycling. Eventually that cycle is going to have to be broken. Those little CF bonds are very, very small. If you remember from your chemistry, a very tiny bond is a very powerful bond. So it's going to take a lot of energy, and energy is code word for money to break those CF bonds. And so we're not going with the newest technology right now because it's still new. The PAC will buy us, we hope, 10 or 15 years until the technology settled, how to get rid of the PFAS is settled. Right now, the regulation is, if we can detect it, it's too much. So that's at 4. We're afraid if science improves and in 2 years, like we can detect that too. Okay, now we're down to our limits too. But we've just spent all the money in the world on a technology that'll get us from 4 to 2.5. And now we've got to go over to. So the PAC is really a Band-Aid until we can let this technology kind of mature and then pick out a long-term one in both the cost up front and the operating.
Can I just make an observation? I know you are not cavalier with any of these numbers. I would just caution, the Neptune gateway collectors, saying we might need more, we might need less. I would rather know how many we need so we can budget for them and not take too many dollars from the public.
Well, that's why we kind of do it year by year. And so as we put in the 2 this year, then we'll know maybe next year. We're not quite sure. So instead of putting in 3, we'll put 2. So that's as we go 27 and 26. I'm not really to give you an idea, the professional study that we were first given said 13. But if you put, that was our sales, so take it for what it's worth. But if we look now, we don't see it taking that many.
Okay, thank you.
And then, of course, council could always stop at any time and say, we're collecting 90% of the reads to get the last 10% of the reads. Diminishing returns just happen like less than, right? It's not an all or nothing. And then of course the water vehicles, that's, those decisions are made with a combination of expected life span and common sense, right? Just because it's so old, it's got 30,000 miles and it's tucks around the water plant.
All for the capital improvement replacement schedule.
That's right.
All funded.
All funded already. Here's some examples of projects that at the water plant that we know we will have to tackle. Whether we do these this year, next year, or in 10 years, will be based on the plan. Our filter bed actuators will work with our updated technology. Our fluoride tank had a small leak in the flange, which wasn't the worst thing. We'd go and tighten it in with the leak. We're like, okay, let's run the fluoride tank out and have it professionally looked at to see if it has end of its life and it's about to explode on us, or if we could just live with that leak for another 10 years. We drained it, we got it ready to look at, and they said, oh, for us to inspect it, we'd have to destroy it. We're like, okay, well, I guess that's the end of that. So, and then we have our line silos, those bands around the top, those need to be replaced. We bought the material, we thought we could do it in-house, and then it turns out, no, we gotta be a little bit more specialized and hire a group that probably travels around. We couldn't even get any pipes with the local contractor yet. These are all just examples. So when I say the water plant projects, it'll be one-offs like this as compared to building a new library dedicated.
So is that what would be coming out of like the master plan project? We expect that's where that, but that'll help us decide how to prioritize and
That's
put those in order.
That and not prioritize, but also group. Right? We don't want to replace this tank and then 2 years like, oh, we gotta replace this one right next to it. So it'll really help us get us the most bang for our buck. With people that can kind of step back and see the big picture instead of what really irks me.
So we know some of the things we need, but that'll be ordered.
And we know there will always be problems. It's just the nature of the.
High pressure water, yeah, it's gonna happen.
So connected to the water fund is the water distribution. This year going throughout through 2028, you'll probably notice very, very similar terms to what David or areas that David just talked about. We try to coincide with when he's digging up the street. Is it worth to replace the sewer? Is it worth to replace the water main? And then on the flip side, we've got one that's in horrible condition. David and Laura Flower, is it worth doing something on the streets there? So I won't go through all of these. If you have any specific questions about it, but generally what you guys will be more interested in will be in the next couple of slides. So this is just our general CIP where we're improving. But what you're right here, I think is what you guys would be more interested in. This is a heat map of our boil orders from the last 4 years. So from 21 through 24, we have every boil order mapped in the area. You can see some areas never ever get touched with a boil order. Pipes are in good shape. Some areas such as in Heritage, remember last fall, we had a heck of a time trying to do that. You can see it wasn't just that area. We've got a bunch of boil orders over the last couple of years there. And so what we do is we share this information with engineering. We try to come up with the best idea. Here's where we're having problems, where you're having street problems, try to mix and match it through the last few years. What I'd like to say is we can't go, it's not as easy as just saying this water main failed, is replace that next. Water main conditions are determined by a lot. One is the year it was put in. So pre-World War II, iron, very, very good. After World War II, the quality drops off quite a bit. So you have newer mains that are failing a lot more often than the 100-year just because of that. The other one is you could have high quality just put in maybe 30 years ago, but if it's hanging out in the heritage soil, it's being eroded at a lot quicker pace than other areas. So it's not as easy to saying pull this, replace. You really want to have more data. What I'd like to, I guess, point out here is we have a non-destructive, if you look in, starting in 2027 and 2028, we have, for $50,000, we have non-destructive water main testing. And what that will allow us to do is really hone in into an area. And just because we're having maybe a few problems on this block, maybe we don't need to rip out all 1,000 feet of it. We can actually get non-destructive testing and say, whatever reason this area is bad, replace this 200 feet. Don't touch the next 600 and then replace the next one, right? And so it'll actually give us every so many feet how thick it is and give us an expected life span, right? So we should even get more bang for our buck, spend a little bit more on non-destructive testing than really have the data and know what we're digging up before we dig it up and recycle it. This brings us to lead service line replacement with the IEPA state revolving loan fund. So just on the pictures up on the right, we have the red pipes that we're trying to replace. Down below, you can see us running the copper in. What I will say is this slide and what Carol said a little bit is actually out of date. About 5 hours ago, we learned that in 2026, we're not getting 4 million in forgivable and 3 million in loans. We're actually going to get 5 million in forgivable and 3 million in loans. So it's actually better than what it was than we knew it this morning. So this year, we're getting ready to sign the contract. We're going to replace about 390. I think you've seen the map when we brought it to council before. A large section will be kind of over in the Wilson middle school range, and then we have a lot near Stevens Park. Right? Next year, you can scratch out intended use. We're on the list. We're ready to do it. We'll have 5 million in forgivable, and we will have 3 million at 0% over 40 years. We expect to replace about 800 next year. And then you probably heard David say 3 million Charlie's lead service line going forward. That was the original plan that was brought to you. It was in April of 24. At that time, we basically took all the lead lines, about 5,000. We knew we had about, I think it was 17 years around there to replace them all. So it was about 300 a year, $3 million a year in loans. We still had the 5,000 overall that we have to replace, but what we didn't know then is we got 3 million free this year. We got the chunk from Swans. We've got another 5 million coming next year. So that changes everything you guys had seen last year. That changes the math on when we have to pay back and how much we have to pay back, because all of those were based on loans every year, 30 years. So we're going to pull out 1,200 out of the 5,000 lead lines, and it's going to cost us 3 million that we pay back over 40 years. Right? So we're on a roll, and hopefully we can keep it up. Eventually, it's going to dry out, and we're going to have to get to 0% funding, and we'll see how that goes. The other idea I'd like you to keep in mind is don't become attached to any one plan now, because the plan right now is we have to have them out in 16 years based on how many we have. But there's a rule in the books that says you have to have them out in 10 years. The federal administration rescinds that rule, then we still have 16 years. If the federal administration keeps that rule, we go from having to pull them out in 17 years to 10 years. And so then that changes the whole calculus. So what I would advise is we revisit this winter October is when the rules should be finalized, after we know what it's going to be, and then kind of regroup and see how quick you guys want to pull them out and how much surcharge we have to. Right, so in your mind, just know that's the sign. We're cooking, we're doing good, but it's still up in the air.
Last year we made the policy decision that during lead service line replacement, the city is going to take the financial responsibility for the segment that's owned by the homeowners that they're half. Has that been rolled out? And then we had also discussed there was a retroactive portion of that. Have we gone back to people, or how did that play out?
So, starting, in October of last year, the city did take control of that because that's when the new lead service, new lead copper rule came into effect. And so we took control of that because now you're not allowed to fix a lead line. You're not allowed to connect a pipe to a lead line. So if there's a pipe and it's leaking, it's connected to a lead line, we usually will contract it out to a company that's got a boring machine, and they will replace the whole line of copper. And then, but we save money by then it comes to my lab, and part of that regulation is 3 months later, my lab goes back and they take a sample and they run the results, and we give it to them and make sure it's within the limits, right? So we have done that. We've been pulling out, I think we pull out around maybe average about 15 to 20 a year where we have leaks or breaks that we'll have to replace the whole thing. So that will slowly be coming out. Your second part of your question was about back pay. We do have a list of people that pay for their own repairs starting the first law, I think it's in 2022. What we will have to decide is the preliminary, Bob, can you correct me if I misspeak? Preliminary plan is they provide the receipts and then we pay them back. The side that we paid for, we know we did because we have the receipts. If we don't have the receipts, we have a list of everyone we don't have receipts from, and then the assumption is they pay back, and then they will have to provide those, and then we will pay. How to pay for that is, well, one way is we just start doing the surcharges a year earlier, before the loans are due, to pay for that, and it doesn't matter how I feel, but I feel that's fair because it's basically the same thing. The surcharge is paying for lead service lines, the surcharge a year ahead, but reduced to whatever we need when we have the final numbers, but also pay for lead service lines that were taken out, just not under our control. Is that fair way to say it? About so.
Thank you.
And so how are we handling notifications to those
We
previous customers? Because I mean, the law rolled out before we were then caught up with the policy.
Right, so we haven't sent out the notifications, but I've been talking with our staff that handles, I assume we'll handle it very similar to when someone has a pipe break and they submit their documents and they submit their receipts and they say, just look at my bill, it was 5 times what it normally is, I fixed it. And then the director of utilities will make the decision, yes, you meet all the criteria, just like we do now. So it's not a lot of houses. Do you remember off the top of your head? It was 30 or 40 houses, not a ton. And so then they'll submit it, and my staff member that already handles the receipts and going over the criteria will make sure they check all the boxes, and then the final decision will be made by the director or Bob or Barry.
And we're proactively going back to them, right?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
We will send a letter to them, and if they don't follow up, probably give them a call. We will, a letter specifically to their house, not something they have done.
Yeah, because I mean, the lead service line disaster was the fault or responsibility of homeowners, but often falls on lower income neighborhoods and areas where we don't have time or not paying attention, and I just want to make sure we're not saying, oh, well, we can come back and ask for it. We decided we're doing this, and then we'll make sure we're doing it.
That is correct. We'll do our due diligence to make sure they know. Then we get into our WPC. Again, just to rip off the vehicles real quick. For the most part, when we expect them to go out, what condition they are. Nothing terribly exciting, just replacing light with light for the most part. We have our South Slope design for this year that we finished up. We also have the South Slope construction and engineering, which was separate from the design, even though you'll see when we were saying it was 133 million, that was everything together. We have to rehab the cold storage building, which is not at the top of the list for all our construction. We have bigger fish to fry now, but it's there if we deem it necessary during the rest of the year. And then we have our sludge mixing improvements / phosphorus removal design starting this year. Next year, we continue on with that South Slope construction. So, man, that number really blows everything up, doesn't it? Like 30 million year after year after year, right? So,
51 months took, and we mentioned more than 4 years, but it's actually about 51 months.
So, on top of that, next year we've looked at the sewer maintenance garage. It's got some structural issues that we will eventually address so that we can get the most bang for our buck from our facilities. And then our north slope phosphorus removal, we just opened the bid for that. And normally it'd be like, wow, 1.5 million, but after dealing with such big numbers, you're like 1.5. Let an intern handle it. So we have 1.2 for this year. We'll finish it up in 2027. That is an IEPA mandated phosphorus removal. We'll be doing chemical. We have to do it. We bid it out. It's basically a much cheaper and easier solution we had then as compared to kind of the South Slope, which is biological phosphorus. And there's a reason we can't use phosphorus removal one more.
That's okay. You'll recall.
Okay. Continuing on, in also in 2027, we have our South Slope diffuser study. We do right now do not have to do that. We expect to have to do it. We want to kick it down the road because our argument to IPA is going to be, what's the point of doing a diffuser study in the middle of building? Let us finish the plant and then you're going to have a room. We did a diffuser in the middle of it. Great, in 2 years it's out of date and you're not getting the. We put it in there just what they've been talking about. Yep. And then 2028, we hope to be continuing, not hope, we better be continuing South Slope construction. I hope it doesn't end in 27. And then that'll carry on into the fall of 2029. And that should all be wrapped up. Okay. Here is one rendering of our South Slope. What I like about this is it shows not just what's up top, it shows you all the work that goes underground. There's a lot of pipes, a lot of stuff underground that you do not see that makes it work. But this is what we're building and will serve the south side of Moline for the next 50 years. Here's a picture of our north slope and the area that's kind of shaded right in the middle. That's where we'll be fitting in our phosphorus, chemical phosphorus removal now. So you see, we didn't have to make a lot of infrastructure changes. We were able to kind of design it into where it was and keep the price low, but give us exactly what we need. Connected to the WPC is the sanitary sewers. Again, a lot of it is going to be areas that David Dreyer has interest in, is redoing the streets. I think you guys might have seen in the last few weeks about the smoke testing. We continue on that. We have it penciled in for the coming years, but that's a placeholder based on what the science does. So if nothing else, I'm very big into letting the science point me where to go, and also using it as a very strong excuse to come with my hat in hand. Here's an example of our smoke testing. So what we like about smoke testing is if you were to look at this yard in front of this house or in the middle, you would not know that that sewer is broken. But that smoke comes up and lets you know. A water main is very easy. It's broken. What happens? Water comes up out of the ground. Yeah. A sewer is broken. The sewer is not under pressure all the time from use. And so if it breaks, the sewer doesn't come up so we can see it. It just leaks into the ground. And pollutes the ground, and best case scenario gets into the storm and goes into the river. You know, it's like that's best case, but that's better than building up. So what this smoke does is it allows us, this looks fine, but there's smoke coming up. Obviously there's a crack, and then we can get there and fix it before it gets into our storm sewer or our storm pipes, and then goes to the river untreated. Then we get to our stormwater capital improvement budget. Again, the storm vehicles, just like we've done with the other two, as needed. This year we have a portable diesel generator slotted in, and after last Friday, I don't know if anyone would argue that we would need that. This is so that we can get pumps to go where we need to. during the time, not just when it's heavy rain like last Friday, but it would be a trickier situation when it's heavy rain and the river's up. That'll be a different story. And then we also have plans next year to add another large pump down onto 16th Street. The stormwater, Carol mentioned it, it's come quite a far way for the last few years. I'd like to, he's not here. Andy Parr has done a terrific job with our stormwater. He's made it his baby. He's brought the ordinances. He's built it up. There's something wrong in his brain that gives him a lot of passion for it. So we'll take it to our advantage and we'll get everything out. So last Friday, it looked bad, but the floodwater did what it was supposed to do. It flooded the streets and then we didn't have a lot of non-street area flooding. That's what we want. We're gonna have flood streets, get it back out.
Charlie, update them on, what we're doing down in Eastgate.
Ah, yes.
Stormwater, the biggest stormwater.
So we're doing a large, stormwater project down at the Parr Building, Eastgate, kind of that 49th Street, 53rd drainage. So I don't know if you've seen the flood map. A whole lot of upstream water gets put to that one little half block. It causes quite a problem, and it has been causing quite a problem for a number of years. But we've done a couple things with it. One is Andy got out there with his crew. He said, one thing, we can make a lot of changes just by let's get it back to how it's supposed to. So he found pipes that we didn't know were there because they were so filled with silt and sediment, which made it run better. He's cleared out some vegetation that makes it run better. And we partnered with IMEG and to design a storm pump down there with higher, flood walls so that it doesn't come over when the river is high. And we partnered with, I say partnered, it's a nice thing. We hired CMT to redo the flood mapping down there so that we know everything that we're engineering and we're planning to build, because it is a big lift. And we're going to rely on it to keep a lot of area dry. We have kind of two engineers checking these stuff, and they both say, looks good to me. And so when we had that rain last Friday, everything flowed great. It stayed dry. The problem is when that river is high up, that's when that water comes down and then it doesn't flow naturally. And then that's when we have to start using pumps to get it over the berm and circulate it and get it back out to the river. But it has been a problematic wet area for a long time, and drying it out and putting some stormwater control down there should kind of, I don't want to say rehab, but give a little new life to that area, right? Where it's going to just become maybe a little bit of storage because it's always wet. Anything? Good enough?
Did we remember when we were chatting with the kids from the school district, you mentioned wondering about a pipe that's too small, a 5-inch airbag? Is that conversation taking place with anybody in the district? Because just in the last couple of weeks, they're planning on their expansion up there, so.
We have met with them about the expansion and the size of the pipes.
Okay, there you go.
But this wasn't within the last couple of weeks. So if they found something within the last couple of weeks,
Okay,
we'll need to reach out to them. We met with them a few months ago. The distribution manager and the sewer manager, make sure everything was fitting correctly. And at that time it was, maybe they found something that's not
Just want to make sure that they get it.
Again, a lot of it, the same old, I wouldn't say same old and be dismissive, but a lot of the same areas again that we're doing with engineering. We're going to dig a hole in the ground and replace any system. Along with like some inlet replacements, just ditch restoration. You'll see some of these, it says to be determined. And that's the nature of our stormwater and our modeling is we attack one area, we think we know what'll happen, then it might just kick the problem to another area. So we use that to be determined so that then we have the wiggle room to then try to attack it somewhere else until we chase it down. And so on the left is just a general, if you're looking, that would be 53rd. Sorry, that's John Deere going across, and so up to the right is like the Hungry Hobo and the Carpet Land. This is just an example example of the type of stuff that stormwater keeps clear and keeps everything flowing. You can see it takes a lot of maintenance and it wants to fill in, not just with vegetation, but with litter and whatever debris floats on its way. On the right, you'll see we have one pump at our 16th Street pump station, but we need another pump there because that's another area where all that water's coming down the hill and it wants to flow.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
I had a question going back to sanitary sewers with the smoke testing. So they run, I understand how smoke is anything where the spots are. How do we know we're finding all those spots? Like, because if it happens in someone's backyard or in a ravine or somewhere, I mean, how are, just curious how that part of that process goes.
The big picture is the engineering group we rely on. We hire RJN, they do smoke testing all the time. We're one of 100 they do, and we let the engineers do their technique without.
So they're like,
seconds.
they have a way of knowing, hey,
Maybe.
we know it's leaking somewhere that they have to go find it.
That is true. And so they'll walk the area, they'll see where it's going. What we also do is we put out, you might have seen it in the social media post, hey, we're doing smoke testing here. So that's another way. So if someone sees smoke coming in their backyard, like they're doing smoke testing, we should let the city know. On the flip side, they see it coming out of their sink. Of course, the city's doing smoke testing. It's just finding its way out. So it's a little bit of both. A little bit of tell, a little bit of engineering, of their engineering tests, walking the pavement.
I got 2 texts for that, thanks.
Oh.
The information was great.
Okay, who's next?
Yeah, the next couple of slides is just a compilation of all the years. And so even though they kind of hit the highlights, every single project as proposed is on here, and these are what I lay out to the financials. We've got the 24 actual, the 25, 26, 27, and 28. And so before we leave this and jump into parks, are there any questions, especially regarding the 2026 year that will come forward? And if not, in the past, what we've done is if you are comfortable with projects that have been presented, David and Charlie will prepare a resolution, either yes for July or the first thing in August, for council's approval, to move forward so we can start the design and engineering work on those projects for 26. Again, no project will come forward until council actually formally votes on each individual project, but it's a guide people.
This, I assume the answer on this one, but with uncertainty in the federal budget, and if we have to tighten our belt a little bit, are there projects that we have a hierarchy so we can drop 1 or 2 for this fiscal year to save a little bit of money? Is there a rank order in which engineering
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not a prioritization based on available funding. I mean, if it's a federally funded project, obviously, it's significant. Where's it cost-wise? I mean, it needs to be pushed back.
And even if it's not, though, my concern, these are some of our larger projects. And so we need to move that money elsewhere to stay afloat, or it feels like, I just want to make sure that this is a thought process for.
Well, I think what you're suggesting actually follows that. If we follow the pattern we've always had, where we get started on engineering, but the council doesn't approve the dollars until November, we're probably on the right path there. Plus, there are very few actually federal funded projects in here. We're not very susceptible at the moment to the loss of those funds that I can tell.
The biggest risk right now, in my mind, is probably the bill grant, right? $60 million bill grant, following up with a $24 million bill grant. And not knowing what's coming. I mean, USDA still hasn't released information, I mean, typically they're, very a lot. So we have to shift gears and try and figure out how we want to progress with that project. If you just spent $500,000 on it, right? Not trying the land acquisitions and land building acquisition costs,
There's time.
there's
Point is,
plenty.
there's time.
Right. We'll get there. We'll get there.
And I do agree we need to continue to think about it, not because we think these projects are going to be funded, but because when people are kicked off their health care and when they're talking about cutting access to food programs and places where we are going to have to try and step in, I mean, that's the risk. It's not about what's, they're cutting funding here. It's that if people in Moline, when they start hurting, which they will, we're going to have to step up.
Parks.
I'm sorry.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I have another question.
So when I'm looking at the 2026 CIP list, it looks like the items that they've done in the presentation are on here. Is this list, do you think, up to date, including everything, or we need to check that one last time to make sure all the projects are? Like I see the Avenue of the City one is on this list.
We'll check to make sure everything's
Thank you. All right, Mr. Gervin.
And I can start off on the financials here. It is on page 82 of your book. Everybody get there? And just a couple of things when you read this. Again, we have not finished the operating budget. We have not finished reviewing that. But that being said, again, as we look towards 2028 and percentages of all payroll increases rate, we feel very comfortable with this cash flow is going to be achieved. And will look very similar when you see the final one in October. Just a couple of highlights. As you know, every year look at the top revenue line for taxes. In order to make this work, typically we try to increase the taxes, property taxes that go to parks about 3% a year. So that's already built into that revenue stream that helps make this work. On the operating side, if you look at cultural and recreation, the line right above the kind of orange line in the middle, the operating right now is presented averages about 2.5% to 2.8% a year, and that has been achievable. So we think that that's a reasonable number. The new thing I want to point out is the capital outlay, and Eric is going to go through this. They completed their master plan. The recommendations have been consideration of increasing total project costs up to $1 million. And what we're recommending as we get to the very last slide is to use some money out of the special CIP fund to backfill that gap. And if you take a look in blue, highlights there, it says transfer in from the special CIP fund. You'll see 100,000 in 2025 and then 400, 200, and 150. That is filling that gap up to $1 million. They have funding right now for the remainder, but the gap to make it up to $1 million with the additional transfers out of the special CIP.
So, I'm not trying to be too low.
Please.
But that's not the purpose of the special CIP. Correct? The purpose of the special CIP fund is to fund our big, huge projects such as the riverfront. It is not to fund a general piece of Parks and Rec. Am I wrong?
That is certainly council's decision. In the past, if you remember, we've done like some tennis courts, futsal, we did some football work at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where this was coming from.
How is it going back into special CIP? Or is there not a plan to do that? Is this literally just taking from the special CIP?
It would be additional funding going to parks. And,
I understand the need to fill the gap if they're going to do particular projects, but also we're increasing their budgets by 3%. We've got to cut back somewhere, and I philosophically can't get behind taking money from the big projects. Even though this is a small amount, 100, 400, it just, that's not why we started this special CIP. Just.
Just, I made the motion for the special fund, initially. The intention back then was to start saving for the fire department, so that we didn't have the small amount of 20 million. Oh, the olden days. And, we wanted to reduce the loan. And so that's always been my concern. I kind of run from a debt is bad mentality, so I'm always trying to reduce it. And so I would have to be really convinced for transferring out. I want to transfer out personally. But that's
To
just,
the special.
to the special CIP, right?
Anyone else?
Was the state part of the special CIP?
But we have not put any money on the
It's
line
just like-
there. It's just a.
There was a lot of placeholders and we were special CIP or something. We're not for cotton, but they're not just focused. All right.
Thank you. Following down the line, whether the projects are funded at $1 million or that is the amount built with regular CIP, the ending fund balance will come out to about 24.4%, which is well within the fund balance policy, because the revenue would be decreased if you did not transfer it into the special revenue, and the expenditures would be reduced. So ultimately, the ending balance in 28 would probably contain just one project to be completed.
Okay, so our Parks and Rec master plan was approved by the Park Board in February 2024. Just like what Carol said, this plan was basically based on $1 million a year in capital projects. This, take out the Riverside legacy project, because that's not really addressed in here because that had started before this. This master plan is not flashy by any means. It takes a very hard approach of looking at what we currently have and updating what we currently have and not really adding a lot. That's because in the last 4 years, we've done pickleball courts, we resurfaced our tennis, we did our updated O'Brien, Stevens Park, we've done quite a bit. So going down the list, as you can see, in 2025, most of these projects are currently going or have been completed. The Browning Park, with that being our biggest one for 2025, that's a picture below the rendering, and then it doesn't quite look like that anymore. The grass has definitely grown since then. We are currently working on the Moline Little League playground as we speak. That should be completed middle to late August. That lines up with our master plan, and playgrounds being replaced we try to go 20 years, but the playground at Moline Little League was quite heavily used, and that was replaced in about 16 years. So 15 to 20 year frame. Every year it goes through the funding for these facilities. That's something that came out every year. It seemed like the soccer club, the Moline Little League, Music Guild was coming and asking for some type of request, but not coming and asking for funding during the budget cycle. It'd be like they'd come in, in the middle of the summertime and whatnot. Last year we did a little bit more than 25,000. We did some sidewalk replacements at the Little League to make more ADA accessible. We also did the Music Guild roof. So all of those facilities are city-owned facilities. A nice thing about Park Board will be adopting a policy about going forward, if that funding is available, that if they request, a certain amount, that they have to match it with a certain amount. And that's depending on, if it's a safety issue, if it's like an HVAC or heater issue, or if it's a cost. So that's something that also came out of the master plan to help them with smaller upgrades. Also, and pretty much every single year, you'll see picnic table and bench upgrades. That was something that was voted on either 2018 or 19 by the Park Board about getting rid of all the wood picnic tables and benches in our park system, and they voted on a certain brand and style to make everything as uniform as possible. So that plan's been going on for this is the 6th or 7th year, and we've got a few more years of that. We've gotten a lot of compliments of all the shelters that have been switched over for reservations with metal vehicles. The boiler replacement has been completed. The piping, the lining, scoping has been completed. Asphalt overlay of the Riverside Park. Parking lot will be completed. We'll start next month. The 2 playgrounds. The Osland grant will actually be the last slide that I have in my little presentation. And I'll explain what that 60,000 is for. The majority of the increases that you'll see over the course of the 3 years is taking bits and pieces going towards Green Valley. So the Milton feasibility study that was presented to the board last fall was a sticker shock, just like it was a sticker shock from the park board. And obviously, we had talked about turf fields a couple of years ago that didn't really go over that well with council. So now we're looking at ways for the Osland grant to help us with some of those smaller things and really taking a look and doing some of those pieces every single year. So the next 3 slides or 4 slides.
We have a couple questions.
Yes.
I have 2 items I'd like to ask about. Do we really need a new pool heater already
So that is so I'm going to get to,
for Riverside?
yeah, that's in 2026. So I will, yes.
Okay, I'm a year ahead, I'm sorry.
So that,
I'll ask that question later.
well, so that pool heater is actually the existing one for the main body of water. We've had troubles with it every single year. I should have just built it into the pool project, but it's difficult to pay something for something that only runs for a couple of months at the beginning of the season and then for a month at the end of the season. And then another one that I did bring up in 2025 was the soccer goals. So that was out of the special projects fund. And we purposely didn't do anything with it in 2024 to see how the mini pitches went. And talking to a couple of the city council members, those complaints about not having soccer have gone down or gone away. We are still trying to work out a plan to use that 100,000 for mini pitch at Riverside. That was originally kind of in the Riverside Legacy plan. There's a little bit of a funding gap that we're trying to work on right now. But if for some reason that doesn't work out, that will stay in our reserves that could be used for something else on that line or go back to the special CFP.
Yeah, I understand why we needed to make sure the soccer got taken care of as soon as it has. And as my husband likes to say, our money is our money. Like, you might have all these funds. But I would have thought this would have just come out of the general fund for reserves. This is $100K.
That was voted on.
I'm sure, yes, and I didn't catch it then. But maybe that's the only thing we've done by taking it out of special projects fund. But again, I still think what I said about the previous pages remains.
That $100,000 come out of council. It's either council contingency or surplus at the end of the year. But
Yeah.
it was not taken out of the special
I'm
project.
just, the Mrs. Robbie needs to.
Carol.
So for the next 3 years, you'll see what's currently in the budgets on top, and then that proposed 1 million down below. Like I said, you have the funding for lease facilities, upgrades to, so now that we've done some of the bigger parks, Prospect was done in 19, Riverside was done in 2024, we did Stevens in 2023, O'Brien, some of the smaller ones. We start looking at some of those smaller parks over the course of the next 3 years and beyond to start doing upgrades to them. Anywhere from fencing to sidewalk repairs, shelter options, and borders to playgrounds, etc.
I don't think we were in office when the pickleball project got going. We were here for its, and all of that. So
I'm not clear on the cycle of resurfacing.
Sure. Every 5
Every 5.
to 7 years. This is our most heavily used facility and has taken a beating over time. Like the tennis courts that we resurfaced last year, they were 7 or 8 years, I believe. But yeah, so that would be crack filling, and
So this is almost 5 years since.
yes, it will probably be done in the fall, so it'll be just past 5 years.
It's on the list now. So, have we, have we asked the streets department for the asphalt overlays in the cemetery, if it's something they can do with the, paver that we have?
It has not been a discussion.
Because I'm just imagining it would be cheaper than $325,000.
I would not be supportive of going down that path. I think that is there to alleviate our smaller incidents. And having seen some of the larger patches we've done in like, the alleys and things, they are functional, they're going to serve that purpose. But I don't believe the tool we have is going to be set up to do that entire road. It would be technically feasible, but based on some of the alleyway pieces, I just have not seen that being very interesting for that whole thing.
I know that these are not high traffic roads, the cemeteries, and they probably don't require gutters. And an overlay is typically adequate. I would be interested, Denver, if that's just a conversation we can have to kind of determine feasibility. And then I think the council can argue about it passionately.
Okay, you continue, Mr.
So talking about the Riverside Cemetery, so that does about 2/3 of the cemetery. It does not do all of the cemetery. It does, basically when you drive in, it does the main road and everything to your left. So it's all the hill, the large hillside. Those roads have not been done in decades. And we've done small patches here and there as well.
But they can be passable. I haven't been up there in a while.
Yeah, they're passable. Yeah, they're definitely rough. A lot of them are seal coated. So similar to what we did to Moline Memorial in 2022, that much smaller project at the time, and that cemetery was as well.
It was very well received by the public.
Yes, and you would, not high traffic with vehicles, but there's walkers at both cemeteries. Some of the athletes like to train at Riverside Cemetery because of that. New pedestrian bridge for Camp Monash Trail. The playground on the next page you'll see, that playground has already been purchased. So that $75,000 will help install. It will also pay for mulch and border. It will also do some upgrades to fencing, sidewalks as well. So whatever money is left over from the install. And this playground was purchased as part of the 3 that were, the 2 that are being done this year, and this one will be in 2026. This was part of the Game Time grant and the CDBG grant that we had to be able to purchase all 3. Any questions over 2026? I didn't go every single project, but if there's any certain questions you'd like to ask.
I apologize. Dog park upgrades for Green Valley. I mean, I understand typically from an urban planning point of view, dog parks exist because there's a lot of concrete and there's not a lot of green space. And so it's an opportunity for people to walk their dogs. And so I think it serves that function. And this is probably a conversation during budgeting. Why do we have a dog park in a massive green space, surrounded by green space? So, I mean, I'm questioning if funding it is the most logical, and this is more of a planning question, but we can address that through funding. I just, I don't know if that's a philosophical question, but what costs 50 grand in a dog park?
Benches, trees, some upgraded sidewalks, as there really isn't any sidewalks to it. There's an old shade structure that's going to be removed with possibilities and options or shade structures. Just general maintenance. When we did the upgrades to the Butterworth Dog Park in 2021, it was about 70,000. We did some upgrades to the fencing, sidewalks, benches. There's some agility equipment that we're looking at as well. General. 2027, starting to look at some of the smaller parks like Kiwanis Park, Sylvan Island, Optimus Park is in 2028. Not replacing any of their playgrounds, but just looking at, like I said, shade, fencing. The Green Valley Softball Complex upgraded walkways and shade structures. This is a possibility of using that paver. I have not had that discussion, but those are some smaller things. That's also what we're trying to address with the Osland grant that I'll explain a little bit more at the end as well. In the master plan, it talks about some of our larger parks doing a master plan. I just don't see that still being there in 2027. I think that will probably get taken out. Everything that in 27, 28 can be shifted around because, you know, we've had like, originally we weren't going to do the boiler at the garden center, and that went out or was going out, and that was put in for the 2025. So a lot of that can be shifted around. The biggest thing I want to reiterate with our plan is we're trying to, you know, we've done our big ticket items, and now we're trying to concentrate on some of the things that have been not touched basically in 10 plus years, 20 plus years, other than maybe a playground that was put up. You know, looking at, so like I said, Sylvan Island, Kiwanis Park, the Riverside Park Maintenance Garage, it's also in 2028, the Moline Memorial. Those things have been pushed around as well. The master plan that was from 2014 to 2023, Bob can attest to it. It was not a very well thought out, put together plan. It was kind of all over the place. It was never used by previous staff. It just sat on the shelf, probably for good reason, but never was touched. And so those things, those projects have been kind of pushed around and pushed back as well. And so trying to fit those into our budgets going forward.
That plan runs back to 2014. I read it first meeting, pulled it up, I prepared to look at it. I remember the discussions. The plan itself was at best nothing more than a document. There was no budget to support anything, and there was no indication to the predecessors to the elected body or to the staff. But everybody used it to fund and so this plan that Eric's been working with Park Board actually did exactly what I asked for 4 years ago, and that was that master plan was identified what the cost was in today's dollars going forward, so that, you know, this 700 acre park system that we own and operate, you know, to be well maintained. Parks are well received by the public. Most of such functions for sidewalks get this, right? But our parks get great scores like the library, you know, like the fire rescue department. So, you know, I think, you know, the big question is, you know, how do you want to fund it? I mean, obviously, you know, looking at this, we can, you know, increase it, fill that gap, or we can push back. Push back, you have to increase costs. There's nothing that's going down for everything's going up. So it's either you attack it head on, you know, you balance your budget accordingly, or you push projects back, you defer maintenance, defer project, but you never forget the project. You never want to be associated with the situation. That's what we're challenged with yourselves and the staff right now.
2026 Oslo grant, please.
Real quick on that, basically, we got a couple years away from playgrounds. In the master plan, it talks about doing between 4 and 6 rubberized playgrounds. I'm hoping that we can spread that across, but it also looks at the age of the playground. We can't just put a rubber surface on a playground that's 5 or 10 years old. That's not fiscally responsible. Butterworth Parkway would be an excellent candidate for that. The flooding would have no impact on that. Every time it floods down there, the mulch floats up, goes away. Heavily used traffic playground, pretty large. We're hoping that we go for, or we're successful with some grants everywhere with this past. So that's kind of a major one. Like I said, the maintenance garage is a project that has been kind of pushed around and pushed back for some time as well. And then the last thing for the OSLA grant is the information just came out for this. You'll be seeing some information come by in August. The biggest thing with this is they are looking for parks to be more accessible. So what we've decided through the feasibility study is new shade structures, repaving some of the existing walkways, this is potential, but we're going to include a small playground, the 2 to 5 year olds. So that playground is broken into 2 sections. That 2 to 5 year old is a different age than the larger section and has reached its almost useful life. So that's part of it. And then we've got a volleyball field there that hasn't been used in some time because it's kind of out of the way. We want to in-house convert that into a grass turf area that instead of us playing flag football and soccer in the outfields, move that out there because we have other groups that want to use our softball fields and then being able to make sidewalks and stuff that go with that. We had 60,000 left over from 2024, and I can't remember why that was left over. I can't remember if the insurance came low or
Part of your budget just came under budget.
yeah. So we've got that 60,000, and we'll be requesting 600,000. Since we are community that qualifies, we only have to match 10% instead of 50%. That's changed in the last couple of years, where it used to be a 50-50 match. Questions?
So let's say the grant request is 600,000, the city portion is 60.
Correct. So it's a total of 660.
Looking at the kind of the overall keys, and I didn't weigh in earlier when we talked about the special projects fund and how that money plays in here. I'm generally opposed, I think, to just supporting that regular ongoing procedures like we're doing. I know that means we have to cut back a little bit. I'm not opposed to saying we're going to do something from the special project funds for the park. It's going to be the special projects, right? I mean, that's the kind of thing that pool would have come out of. That's the kind of thing. I mean, we do have a playground coming up for downtown redevelopment, those things. Skate park would be one. I mean, when we talk about that fund, I really want to focus on one of those big budget projects. There's always going to be more we want to do than afford to do, but that's the purpose there. That's where I fall to that. And we deal with those requests as they come, but I'm not so interested in setting aside the money there. I'll do that.
Okay, last few slides.
I'll kind of start this out and Bob and I kind of work off of each other on this. What we want to do is just take a few moments to review the balance of the special CIP. Again, we're not asking for any action tonight. Obviously, we're going to be working through this over the course of the next couple of months as we tie up the strategic plan as well as balance and adopt the budget back over again. So, what I want you to understand is that basically is what money is available so that as you finalize that plan, you can look up the money that you have to work with. And we've talked about this in past years, that we continue to have competing projects from limited resources. It's kind of been the highlight every single year we looked at this 10-year plan. We implemented some new revenue streams to help pay for some projects. And so I want to kind of go through what administration is recommending for this upcoming 25 through the 34 year, and it's incorporating council and community survey right-of-ways. And the first one is there's 5 main categories, and if you actually pull out the second page, is that big 10-year plan that we continue to work on. I'm going to kind of overlay this here, that the first category, number 1, discussed earlier, is increased infrastructure projects. That was one of the main reasons that we put this whole plan together. And the plan had been to have additional funding between $1 and $3 million each of the 16 years. And if you take a look, you can correspond it to the blue highlights on the big page, number 1. Where do you find that? Look across there, that's where we're seeing that increase in CIP. For 2025, we had $1 million. Now in 26 is the first time we're actually being able to jump into $2 million, $2 million, $2 million, and $3 million in the outer years. Over the course of the 10-year period, there's $22 million that will be available for increased infrastructure projects. So we're following that plan that we put together a couple of years ago. Any questions on that one? The next one is the riverfront development. We've been talking about this for a couple of years, and I'm going to be looking at Bob as well. But we have put in for a $6.5 million build grant with possible award, as Bob had just said, here by the end of July 25. And that is for design engineering, pre-environmental costs, and cost-benefit analysis down there on the riverfront. And then we are also trying to apply January 1 of 26 for a possible award in July of 26 for a $24 million build grant. And that would actually be able to comprise of potential projects, the infrastructure, amphitheater, playground, rail line, parking, garages, etc., and potentially not the skate park. So again, if you look at number 2, you can see where those projects are overlaid. The first one is $6.5 million in the darker blue, $3 million and $3.5 is just a guess kind of on the cash flow to get the grant. And then the bigger grant divided up between 3 years, $24 million. The key thing here is the note in red. Is if the build grants are not awarded, we do not know, we're very hopeful, but we do not know. If they're not awarded, we will need to explore alternative revenue sources or scale back projects to available cash reserves over the next 10 years. So until we know we've got the award.
Are we also excluding for some reason the reality that we hope to have private sector investment that would balance some of this cost?
We're not excluding it, we don't know what that is.
Right.
And so, but that is, we would absolutely be leveraging these grant dollars with some of that private sector.
These grant dollars are really intended to pay for the public infrastructure costs associated with downtown riverfront redevelopment. Private sector investment that would take place on the south half of the Fort Canyon. Right, just split, say, the north 7 and the south 7 are really private sector investment. And if that, sitting here today, we don't have the answer to that. And the plan itself is just now being finalized. And there's interest growing for what we're doing down there, and parties who have been in contact with us, and it's not to say we might not look to do some creative thinking when it comes to this. And how that thing gets built. There's other special facilities that oftentimes attract outside investment in the private sector. So it's too soon to answer the question there about, how much money is coming from private
So I
sector.
didn't ask how much would come in.
Right.
I want it known that we're not trying to front the money for the entire riverfront plan by the city. And that's what was not clear in this, and that's why I said it the way I asked it. Thank you. Please continue.
The next one that has been in the plan for several years is the Central Fire Station, and it's finally moving into that 3-year category here where we're spending money. As you know, you just purchased land for $1.1 $1,270,000. And that, if you turn on the big spreadsheet in the dark blue number 3, you'll see the $1,271,000 spent on land purchase. Then we are moving into 26, and next year we've got money already set aside for the design for that facility, and then targeting $27 million for the construction in 2027. And we're also looking at some improvements to Fire Station 2 as part of that. I did have our financial advisors update the bond runs. Right now, again, that's changing all the time with interest rates. As best we can see, the true interest cost on a 20-year bond would be about 4.18% for 20 years. If we were to go to 30 years, which we could, that's a long time, but we could go at 4.6% on 30 years. And again, we would be looking at issuing those bonds in summer of 2027. Questions on that? And then the next one, this one is new to this list, and it surfaced because of the need to replace some HVAC and roof, and then other interior renovations were identified, and kind of let Bob take the lead on this one.
It's no surprise, I guess, that the building itself, as old as it is, has aged as the candles are in the building, but that's driving 55% of the cost of the sounds really familiar to what we found on the back to the fire station back in 2021, 2022. They take a look at it, physical plants, we didn't shot, ready to be replaced. And that's 50%, 55% of the cost based on Trevor's, the architects that are looking to analyze the building. The roof is done, the roof needs to be replaced. When you start to trigger all these costs associated with long-term maintenance of the building, versus any modifications to the building, the lion's share of it is really replacing the physical infrastructure that was put in here back in the 50s. Because that's the last time anything really seriously happened in City Hall, based on all the data. So we are waiting to get more information back. There was a range of costs anywhere from $10 to $17 million. We plugged in 13 million, trying to have a number to work with, and then pair that number back based upon different things not. That's one of the problems that we have, is as we look to take down the central station one day, you can see when that's coming down, relocating finance to the building and flipping things around the way they were at one time. Years ago, moving the council chambers downstairs, moving staff upstairs, leaving in place what we've just done for security purposes. That was the number that they reported to us. I'm not surprised by the physical condition of that equipment, its age, or the condition of the basement, the mold issues that are down there, the water leakage issues that are down there. It's just a building that was a long time ago. So, as I told the mayor, that we can easily keep the building, maintain it, repair it, which wasn't always the case, especially at the lower level. Or even relocate. Cities make tough choices at that point. Is it cheaper just to renovate what you have, or is it cheaper just to buy something else? And it's easy question on the table, especially when it's a historic building. We have 5 really key principal buildings downtown that are landmarks. This is one of them. Right? Only 5. The rest of the world is old commercial buildings, 5 key. So the question is where do we get? Right? I don't expect a decision tonight. I would love to have that conversation. I'd like to have Trivers come in here and explain it in detail, provide you with plans, details of what they're looking at doing, and then make some kind of decision going forward. But ultimately, it's about healthy building, healthy workplace, and consolidating operations, right? Instead of having all of it, finance coming home. finance started here when they built this. I think they probably been more nomadic than any other department.
You mentioned historic building. Are there any funds available through the state or federal because of the historic status?
That could be, and that's something we would want to acknowledge, see whether or not we can get some matching grants or some of the work that you're doing there, historic credits. We're not private sector, so it's a little bit different than somebody getting historic tax credit.
Preservation though, and this
That's
is a,
preservation dollars. But no, we certainly want to look at that. I wouldn't want to not look at that. Like, it's not super urgent, but it's out there for your consumption, for your knowledge, right? Our job is to bring forward the information and then we make decisions. Policy in terms of budget, in terms of funding, how we're going to do it. But right now, that is the real reality. That's the real knowledge. And I don't always like being in message over and so forth. I've been doing it for a long time.
I think it's appropriate that I share some of the thoughts I've already shared with administration, with the council. I'm having a really hard time with these multiple millions of dollars of unexpected facilities projects. The fact that this city doesn't feel like it has facilities, an overall facilities plan, and we're like, oh, by the way, we need a new fire station. Oh, by the way, we have to fix City Hall. If we're not careful with our planning and the policies that you set, we will stay so long to the big project at the river and spend money inward. And I recognize there's a balance to be had, but I would ask the council to think very, very, very carefully about what alternatives there could be to these multiple millions of dollars in facilities and what should happen. Should you ask administration for an overall facilities plan, much like we've created a special projects fund for the big things that we have to do, right? Why do we not have that same kind of 10-year look or some 5 to 7, whatever it is, on facilities maintenance? We have done, I think, an admirable job of catching up on deferred maintenance for the people of the city when it comes to roads, infrastructure, and all of those things. But we cannot have it all. And I'm reaching the end of my understanding for multiple millions of dollars for surprise projects. Right here, you have $15 million if you include the extra 2 for Fire Station 2, which, by the way, I think should be built into the fire department's budget, their plan for fire or for property maintenance, etc. If we do that in other departments. But that's $15 million of unexpected stuff that's being, yes, shared with us because we need to know it. But that is the other half. If you look at 14 million plus, it's the other half of the second build grant. See what I'm saying? And this is just how I feel and what I've expressed to administration.
Your Honor, it's actually 20 million if you include the $5 million parking structures that we suddenly found out about.
Correct.
And which brings up the question, do we have an RFP for the parking study to help cover those costs? Because we had asked that at the end of last year to get a parking study so we can start to defer, or not defer, but socialize those costs to people that actually use it.
I want to speak to the issue the mayor brought up. There is no long-term facilities maintenance plan, never has been. It's actually written down on a piece of paper as a part of the strategic plan to bring forward. There's many plans we're missing. That's one of them. And without that, that's how we end up where we are. We didn't create this problem. I want to be really clear on the record. We didn't create this problem. We inherited this problem. The shame on those who ignored all these facilities for all these years, and left us with, holding the bank. That's what we are, we're holding the bank. I understand the mayor's frustration. Believe me. I just need to know where all of these skeletons are. They've been falling out of closets for years, right? kid at the Maryland, and I said, I go, I want a full-size anatomical century for my closet. Right, so I can remind myself every morning, But, the reality is that we have to have an idea as to where these problems are. And I think, facilities management plan that identifies routine, ongoing, normal maintenance, which preserves and prolongs the life of your facilities, is a part of that. The other part of the facilities plan is going to tell you what the capital costs are to replace facilities when they reach the end of their useful life, or if they need to be repaired, like a roof replacement is a major repair, a generator replacement, a major repair. And this is true of all the departments. It's true of everything we own. There is no such thing as that. We know what our fixed assets are, and that's the basis for starting it. But we have to have a plan. Otherwise, how do we go about managing our resources for the future, or how the future councils, future administrations deal with that issue? It is one of the things that's listed very clearly in the strategic plan as a goal.
And as we look at the city hall renovations, those pieces, those are showing up here, but not showing up as part of our facilities fund. Because we have a facilities fund that exists akin to the fleet fund, but I'm guessing that it is not
Adequate.
as well planned out or adequate.
It's not planned. It's just not planned. Let's just say it is. So, I think going forward again, this is more about laying this information. We still continue to gather feedback. It's not to say we can't phase different things in as a like relocation of the council chambers is a priority, right? We want to do so that people don't penetrate the security of this building and put the staff at risk. What? Let's say what it is. So maybe by moving that downstairs, that's step one. Because sometime by the end of this month or early August, I expect the CED department to be moving out. And the building is zoning and code enforcement people will also be moving out their facilities and moving in. So it's going to give us an opportunity to do something. This represents bringing literally 38 people together in one place in one building. Basically, is the finance, the HR, the legal, the executive, the mayor's office, city council chambers, the whole nine yards. So,
And I would certainly want to see these things broken out a little more comprehensively too.
yes,
It's like certain items like the HVAC and the roof are harder to ignore because we just create large problems for ourselves. Whereas the other things we can, as you said, break up, move around, and our prioritization, and that helps. It breaks up a $13 million number so that it's more tenable over a longer period of time.
I think the plan was to bring Shivers in here sometime in August, actually, if I'm not mistaken, right? So, bring them in here in August to give you that level of feedback. How do you get to that?
Ms. Barnes, can you remind the council of what are the funds that we have for the revenue generation that we created for the special projects? I know it's just a list of things, right?
If you look at the green one highlight on your big spreadsheet, it's very quickly down that row. Property taxes. We seeded that originally when we created a fund. It was in excess of over $500,000. And we said we were going to try to take growth that comes from reevaluation to the tune of about $200,000 a year. And so you'll see every year that's going up about $200,000. And that has worked this third year here, taking the $200,000. Then, council had authorized a transfer in from cannabis as well. And it was 213 too, and I did round that up to 215. I was tired of looking at that number for some reason to take a raise.
I approve.
Anyway, I rounded it. Then, We implemented the natural gas and electric franchise fee. We started at 1.5%, February of '24, and we are looking now to potentially increase it to 3% January 1 of '26. And again, that revenue has grown, and it's only a partial year in '24.
Yeah.
176,000. It really came in March.
So you don't have to go through the rest of them because what we newly instituted, right, are the franchise fee and the amusement tax.
Yes.
I don't believe that we did that for the projects that continue to be added to this list. In some ways, we did that so we could plan ahead for the riverfront. If we do not focus on the riverfront, we will not achieve what we need to, least of which is increasing the population around here that Mr. Timian pointed out. This council has got to make sure we do not take our eye off that ball. I am one of the biggest proponents of not having deferred maintenance, but then you've heard it from me over the years. But I just cannot stomach $13 million for City Hall when we have so much to do other places and we have empty buildings that we could be using as office space or as City Hall if we need places we can have our meetings. We do not have to bond for $13 million. I have to stop there because I'm getting upset. Schmidt.
I don't dispute the challenge of of the $13 million in amount. Personally, I do believe this fund was created a larger list than just the riverfront. The riverfront was one of the centerpieces. The fire station was equally important to its development. This fund has always had a large number of those projects and pieces. I mean, it was to become that place though for those bigger opportunities, right? The little ones and the little pieces where we should be finding that in our operational places, or when we come in under budget, that's when we can go and find those pieces. I don't think this fund would be limited just to the riverfront and fire station going forward. I mean, I think it has to think bigger than that because while we need to focus on the riverfront, we can't give up everything for that one event.
As I said, I think there are other solutions besides bonding for $13 million. There are empty buildings, but there are city-owned buildings where we can have our meetings that are EDA accessible and we can make safe. I just think there are multiple solutions besides bonding for $13 million. Is there anything for the funding council?
I specifically said I was not speaking against or in opposition to that, but I do believe it's important to think of that special project fund on a broader basis.
Anything further from the council? All right. Then let you get through this whole thing.
Okay, let's just jump to the other projects. And again, this is not entirely related to the special project. I'm not doing it. Sidewalks, I just wanted to recap over the 4-year, or back, it was back 2024 through 28. With the new proposed funding that's in the budget, including some CDBG matching funds, $3.7 million. And I believe that was a priority or in the community survey that came back. And so that was the reason we have placed that funding in there. Parking ramps last year was kind of a hot topic. This year, David Dreyer put together with his staff a plan that totals $2.3 million to improve those ramps. So they've juggled projects around and a lot of those major issues are being addressed. We do have Bridgepoint in there for the demolition. We've got it targeted for 25. That needs to be a council decision on how you want to move forward. It is a large chunk of money, $2.4 million. So as we walk into the budget review this fall, we can bring that forward if you want to discuss it. And we have the Spiegel building for 175 in there as well. You can pay for council consideration on that. And then you all know that the solar farm is in an outcome of an RFP. Well, we just wanted to introduce that there's excellent funding. If I total across the board, and it's not total on your spreadsheet, the big spreadsheet on total revenues, if you go all the way across, you want to consider this in, For the 10 years, from 25 forward, it's $123.5 million, including grant and all revenue sources. So yes, we need to make decisions as we move forward in the budget. How are those funds spent? And what are the priorities of council? How do they tie in with the strategic goals that you're going to be discussing next week? Thank you.
Anything further in our CIP discussion?
Interest as an income source, are we just throwing our extra money into like a money market account? Okay.
I mean,
Awesome.
and to tell you the truth, it just depends on flow. That number there is most likely much higher if we get those grant funds. But we made it back. Yes, we invest everything. We have overnight funds. Everything goes into investment.
That's wonderful, thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing further, on 8.1, we have miscellaneous business. Nothing from me. Where are we headed?
I will be out of town next week, so we'll be on this week. Thank you.
Any other staff? Okay, any further public comment this evening? Sir, we do not have executive session, so I need a motion to adjourn. All right, that's Finch and Schmidt. Roll call, please.
Alderperson Murphy?
Aye.
Razak?
Aye.
Lane?
Aye.
Finch? McNeil?
Aye.
Castro?
Aye.
Schmidt?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. We're adjourned.